Good morning, Ruvain. Okay.
Good morning.
Morning,
Good morning.
Steve.
Good morning.
Harvey.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. As we gather, I'm going to start the learning sponsors. A year of learning Sue and Ani Garlic in memory of Malka Proman and Philip Man. And Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Beryl ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Yosef Meir ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Henya Rivka Pro Rosna bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch. In memory of family murdered in the Holocaust, Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Sharon and Fred Lisker, their family and many friends. In memory of her dear mom, Harriet Friedman, Edelbas Yaakov. Leslie and Gail Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Sedell, Irving and Pearl Kaplan. Friends of Avi Gidler, Avram Meir ben Shimon, and Martha Gidler, China Bat Yeshaya. Children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of Toby Peres, Sarah Tova Bat Yisrael Dov in her memory. Friends of Joe Wolf, Yosef Ben Chaim, Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine, in memory of Ramona Levine, Rachel Mata Bat Asher. Friends of Nina Monester, Nechama Asna Bat Yitzchak Aharon. Many friends of Stephen Vigdor, Lezecher Nishmat, Simcha Melech Ben Meir Leib Halevi. Friends of Marcy Kurtz, in memory of her great niece, Leah Bracha. A month of learning by Haran and Mel Haller, in memory of her mother, Malka Rachel Bat Yehuda Leib. B. Pizer, in memory of her husband, Rav Yisrael Chaim Ben David. Tova and Leo Zimmer, in memory of her mother, Henya Bat Rav Beryl, and her father, Aaron Ben Yosef Mordechai. Perry and Jill Meltzer, in memory of his mother, Malka Bas Baruch, and his sister, Goldalea Bas David Halevi. Stanley Presser, in memory of his mother-in-law, Golda Bat Avram, his mother, Leah Bat Yehuda, and his wife, Ruchel Mincha Bat Moshe. A week of learning by Marvin Becker in memory of his father, Yaakov Ben Meir, by Judy Iger in memory of her mother, Bela Bat Anshel Yitzchak, by Barbara Gallendauer in memory of her husband, Avram Ben Yonatzan. Today, the 12th, Bob and Judy Thaler, a day of learning in memory of his mother, Kreskel Bas Mordechai Eliyahu, Aaron Meyerhoff in memory of his mother-in-law, Fega Malka Bas Dania. Shemas Havan Aliyah, Krenker Rafia, Velti Yeshira Shema Talia, Machol B'nai Yisrael, a good Gaben Shjar. Okay. Yes. Okay. Our Chaver Erwin Keller is sitting Shiva. Services tonight are at 5:30, and in the morning, I believe 7:30. Irvin's address is 3043 Yarmouth C. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Romberg didn't show up. Well, you just said Romberg probably went to the base.
He could have gone to the base of them. Okay. And that doesn't mean he won't show up.
So who's taking Melvin? I got two.
You got two?
I think Rabbi Green said he got a couple.
You got two, and you got two, and I got.
No, I am.
So
Okay,
that's seven. So you'll talk to Bromberg?
Yeah.
right. Today's only Thursday yet. Wednesday.
No, but he wanted it already by this afternoon.
By this afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
If
All
we
right.
have less than 20 all together, he'll do it outside.
Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to pick up on the top of Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph. Even though we went to the Mishnah, okay, I want to go back and start there. Okay, and today's Gemara, to the new Mishnah, and the Gemara is going to give us something that I bet Mel could give us the whole information okay, without even looking at the text. If I ask Mel, where is the reading for the Torah from on such and such a holiday? Okay, you probably could start the beginning of the reading for me,
Say
right?
Such and such a place.
Okay, all right, that's the list,
Okay, so
We have
Okay.
7 more, Bob.
7 more.
okay? Because if I say, what is Rosh Chodesh reading? Mel would say, V'roshei Chodshechem, et cetera, right? Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so that's
So we
That's the whole Gemara today,
We actually follow what the Gemara says here.
for the most part,
More or less.
for the most part. Okay, so going back now, Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph. It said what? Ein mafsikin beklalot. The person, right, would not stop with the right within curses. Ela echad korei et kulan. Okay, so we're on the second line, Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph. B'sheni uv'chamishi, we said, right? On Monday and Thursday, b'Shabbat b'mincha, and Shabbos mincha, korin kisidran. We read back according to the normal routine, the regular structure of the reading. Ve'ein olin lahen min ha'cheshbon. And they're not included in the number of readers or in the format, okay? As is normally to be done. Okay. Shnei Amar, as it says, Vaydaber Moshe et Moadei Hashem el Bnei Yisrael. Okay, when it says that the reciting the holidays, all right, mitzvatan shehiyu korin kol echad ve'echad bizmano. And that ended the Mishnah, that each holiday would be read at its appropriate time, on the occasion. Okay, and really that's now as we continue with the Gemara. Okay, I'm going to just cite at the beginning a couple of the specific references. I'm not going to do that for the entire Amud, okay, because either if you're using Art Scroll, you should have it in the notes. In the Koran, they actually indicated the section in the text. Okay, Tana Rabbanan. B'Pesach Korim b'Parshat Mo'adam. On Pesach, okay, we read in the section dealing with the holidays, okay, and what do? Umaftirin b'Pesach Gilgal. Okay, so in Pesach reading is Vayikra 22:26 through 23:44, and the Haftarah is from Joshua 5:12 through 14. So in other words, so that should be in your notes. Or as I said, Koren has it in the text. Okay.
5:2 to 14.
Yep. V'ha'idna today, de'ika trey yomei. So here's the issue, Zev. Are we following it? The Bavel is talking about already the diaspora. So they have to come up with an explanation as what do we read on the first day? What do we read on the second day? Okay. So therefore, that's why we're going to see some reworking in a few
Mostly
cases.
The Torahs are
Okay.
not quite the
Right,
same.
De'ika, all right?
Bibles are.
Okay, we'll talk about that a little later on. De'ika Trey Yome, today where we have 2 days, in other words, in Bavel, right? What happens? Yom Kama b'Pesach Gilgal, the first day of Pesach, the Haftorah is regarding Gilgal. U'Lamachar b'Pesach Yoshiyahu. And on the second day, okay, of Pesach, we read about King Josiah, right? So again, that's a different example, different location. Ushar Yemot Pesach, and the other days of Pesach, Milaket, okay, V'korei Mi'inyano Shel Pesach. Okay, we gather from various places and we read, okay, dealing with the topic, I'm going to say, of Pesach. Ma'ihi, what is it? Amarav Papa, Ma'pav Siman. Okay, Rav Papa gives us a mnemonic device. Mem Aleph Pei Vav. Mem stands for a section from Shmot. Aleph again, another section from Shmot. Okay, Pei from again from Shmot, and Vav from Bamidbar. Okay, right. Okay, but that no connection there. Okay, Yom Tov Ha'acharon shel Pesach, the last day of Pesach. Okay, Korin vayhi b'shalach, umaftarin vaydaber David. Okay, ulamachar, and the next day. Okay, what do we mean here by the next day? Kol habachor, the second day, right? Umaftirin od hayom. Okay, so again, indicating two different Torah readings and haftorahs between the 7th and 8th days of Pesach. Amar Abaye, and Abaye responds, Va'idna nahug alma lemikre. And nowadays, he says, in general, we have the following pattern. Okay, Mashach Torah Kodesh Bakaspa, Pasah Bamidbara, Shalach Buchra. Okay, so Abaye is simply citing a pasuk by which they use as a device to realize what's the order of the readings. Okay, so that finishes Pesach. Notice, by the way, they started with the reference, since it referred to the Moadim, the holidays, they started with Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot. Ba'atzeret, all right, on Shavuot. Shiva Shavuot is the Torah reading. Umaftirin b'Chabakuk. Okay, and we do the Haftorah from Chabakuk. Acherim omrim. However, others say, ubechodesh hashlishi, that the reading should be different location. Okay, umaftirin b'Merkavah, and instead the Haftorah comes from the first chapter of Yecheskel. Okay, v'ha'idna, and today. Okay, and I always just personally ask myself as I prepare the Gemara, when suddenly it says Vaha'idna, okay, does that mean that that's a later statement added in to the Gemara by Ravina or Rav Ashi, okay, and when they edited the Gemara to indicate, well, this is their 4th generation, 5th generation already. Okay, so by their time, there certainly is a pattern. Okay, so today he says the Ika Trey Yomi, that we have 2 days, okay, of on Shavuos, right? What happens? Avdin and Kitravayu. We do like both of them. Okay, Ve'ipcha, and we reverse it. Okay, so there, based on that example, we see there's a different pattern.
You do the Aseris Adibras the
First day, right. Okay, next holiday. All right, Pesach, Shavuot. What comes next? Sukkot. I don't know. That would be in the 3 Shlosh Regalim. But before that, we've got Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. Okay, the Rosh Hashanah b'Chodesh Hashvi'i, on the 7th month. Umaftirin habein yakir li Ephraim. Okay, that's the Haftorah. V'yesh omrim, and there are those, however, who say, V'Hashem pakad et Sarah, that should be the Torah reading from Bereshis. Umaftarin b'Chana, and the story of Chana. Okay, so what do the Gemara tells us? Va'idna, and today, what do we have? The Ika Trey Yomi, that in diaspora we have 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. Yom Kama Kiyesh Omrim. Notice how the Gemara phrases it, that on the first day, we read like the opinion of the Yesh Omrim, which is Hashem Pakad Sarah. Okay? The Machar, and the next day, Valakim Nisa et Avraham. Then the next chapter in Bereshit. Okay? Umaftirin Habein Yaki. Right? And that's the Haftorah. B'Yom HaKippurim, as we continue, what do we read? Korin Achrei Mot. Umaftirim, and the Haftorah, Kiko Amar Ram Venisa. Okay? So right, and again, as I said, in all of these cases, Arch School, I would believe, should give a note where it's from, and the Koran gives it right in the text. Okay? Uba Mincha, Korin Ba'arayot. So there again, we see what is read for Mincha afternoon, specifically the example of the issues of the Arayot, Umaftirin b'Yona, and the Haftorah Yom Kippur afternoon is in Yom. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Says Rabbi Yochanan.
They live much more exciting lives than we did.
Why do you say
Oh,
that?
the Rashi.
Well, I
He
didn't have.
said the reason we read the Arias is because everybody was doing them.
When we talk about Rashi's commentary in the Talmud, you'll ask your wife what we'll discuss there. Okay?
She tells me.
I know.
Well, I
Kol,
just
we're going to
think-
get to that as of today or next week. Okay. Kol makom she'ata motzei gvurato shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, notice all of a sudden we have a break here. In other words, it doesn't immediately continue with what happens after Yom Kippur. But the Gemara is going to give us what I'm going to call here a moral, spiritual message at this point. Okay, and what is that message? It's to clarify, okay, that at times when the Torah reading deals with Gvurato Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and how do we want to translate Gvurato here? Okay, with the power might be one explanation. Okay, the glory, the strong elements, strong aspects of Hashem. Okay, when it deals with, in that case, atamotse anvatanuto. You also find what we'll call here for the moment his modesty, his humility. Okay, and now the Gemara is going to highlight this example. Davar zeh katuv b'Torah. Okay, and this theme of Hashem's gevura and his anvana, his power balanced by his humility. Okay, or if I want to phrase it another way, we have mishpat and we have rachamim. Okay, again, remember the whole concept of
How is it possible for Hashem to be humble? He is the power of all powers.
that's true. But by showing his mercy to us, he is showing his humility.
Taking care of widows. and
El
orphans.
Rachel B'Chadam.
Okay, that aspect. Okay, and he says, "Devar zeh katuv b'Torah, v'shanui b'nevi'im u'mishalash b'ktuvim." This is presented to us throughout Tanakh, through the Torah, through Navi, and in Ketuvim. Katuv b'Torah, ki Hashem Elohechem, hu Elohei ha'Elohim va'adonei ha'adonim. He is the Lord, the God, the Master. Okay. Uktiv batre, and it's written after that. Oseh mishpat yatom va'almana. He carries out justice, and I'm going to translate it on behalf of the widow and the orphan, etc., etc., etc. Okay? Shanui b'nevi'im. It's taught in the prophets. Ko amar ram v'nisa shochein ad v'kadosh v'gomer. Okay, again, showing Hashem's gvura, okay, his strength, his power. V'katuv batre, and it's written after that. Va'at dekash v'shafal ruach. Again, describing Hashem. Mishulash b'ktuvim. It's written again a third time in the Ketuvim. Dichtiv solu l'rochev ba'aravot be'shmo. Okay, or b'yah shmo. Okay, he rides the clouds. He rides in heaven. Right? His power. Uktiv batre, and afterwards avi yatomim v'dayan almanot. He is provides the parent, the well-being for orphans and the one who judges on behalf of the widows. Now we continue back with the discussion of the holiday Torah readings and Haftorahs. Right? Yom Tov Harishon Shel Chag, first day of Sukkot. Right? Korin b'Parshat Moadot sheB'Torat Kohanim. Again, we read in that section dealing with the holidays in Vayikra. Umaftirin hine yom ba l'Hashem. That's the Haftorah. Va'idna, and today. Okay, the Gemara is telling us in the diaspora, the Ika Tre Yome, that we have 2 days. Lemachar mikra hachanami karina. Second day we read again the same thing. Afture mayim maftirin. As regards the Haftorah, what then do we read? Vayikalu el hamelech Shlomo, that they gathered unto the king of Solomon. Okay. Ushar kol yamot hachag, and the other days of Sukkot, Korin b'karbanot.
What?
Why?
Just ran out of things to read.
Rosh Hashanah, there's no 2 days technically, it's Yom HaRikbo.
Okay, that would be one example, one answer. It's Yom Arichta. Okay, all right. The other example,
Themes of-
okay, would be, okay, we're going to pick this up later in the Gemara too. Okay, the question is, do we see the necessity? Did Chazal see the necessity to maintain a particular theme, okay, on an occasion, and tie the aspects of the Haftorah and the Torah reading, Torah and Haftorah together? You have to remember also that on those days, if there was a sermon given, okay, the sermon would normally start by a quotation from something in Ketuvim. And they would use that as a lead back to whatever the Torah portion was. And again, it was the same thing, or it continued throughout. Okay? Okay. So let's go on now. So what about the rest of the days of Sukkot? All right? All right? We deal with the various offerings, right? So many animals on this day, so many on this day, so many on this day, etc., etc. Right? The Yom Tov Acharon, last day of Sukkot, okay? Korin Kol Bechor. We read all of Bechor, right? Firstborn. Mitzvot V'chukim Ubechor. So therefore we have a pattern throughout Sukkot of mitzvot, right? Of chukim, of commandments, of laws, that is what we bring as the offerings, and ultimately finish up with the example of the firstborn, okay? Who also has certain elements connected with him of commandments and offerings, etc. Okay? Umaftirin vayhi kichalot Shlomo, and we do the Haftorah as Shlomo completed. Lemachar, the next day, Korin v'zot habracha. Okay, so that is right the end of Simchas Torah for us, right? Umaftirin v'ya'amod Shlomo, and then we finish with v'ya'amod Shlomo.
This is actually the first time that it really mentions the 1-year cycle. Until now, it was always dealing with the 3-year cycle.
Okay. By the way, since Michael mentioned that, we have occasions, remember, just a quick mention, where sometimes Ashkenazim and Sephardim have different Haftorahs for the same week. Why might that have been the case? Okay. Remember in Eretz Yisrael, all right, if they had a 3-year cycle, they would have had 3 Haftorahs for the same parsha. Okay.
Also, the weekly haftarahs were not really fixed. You found something that reminded you of the reading.
Right.
So there were different minhagim. Even today, we still have kama minhagim on the haftarahs.
Certainly. Right. Amar Rav Huna Rav Huna Amar Rav. Shabbat shechaliot becholo shel moed. Okay, now we get a little more complicated. Right? If it's Shabbos Chol Moed, right? Bein b'Pesach, bein b'Sukkot, right? Okay, regardless of which 8-day holiday we're talking about. Mikra Karinim. What do we read? Re'ei Ata. Right? That's what it says. Afturi b'Pesach ha'atzmot ha'yaveshot. Again, the dry bones. U'b'Sukkot bayom bo gog. Okay, why is that? Okay, why is it that the same reading of the Torah, but 2 different haftorahs on Chol HaMoed Pesach and Chol HaMoed Sukkos? The suggestion of Koren, and that doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, I'm just putting that out there, is that one deals with redemption from servitude, one deals with redemption, future redemption. Okay, and that was the that actually was based on the Ran. Yes.
The article says there's a, I'm summarizing. from
Yeah.
that, there's a tradition that the resurrection of the dead will occur in Nisan, which is why we read that on Pesach, and the war of Gog in Tishrei, which is why we read that.
Okay. Not different. Right. Similar. Right. Okay. All right.
Same idea.
Yeah. Same basic concept. B'Chanukah, what do we read in Chanukah? B'Nesiim, regarding the princes. Umaftirin ba'anerot to Zechariah. And the Haftorah deals with the candles of Zechariah. V'im makle shtei Shabbatot. Okay. And if it were to occur during Chanukah, that we would have two Shabbases, which we know is possible. Kemaita, the first one, the Haftorah is B'nai Rot Zechariah, okay? Batraita, the second one, B'nai Rot Shlomo. Okay, why? One deals with the time of the first temple, and one deals with later regarding the build,
Both deal with the menorah.
and they both deal with menorah, and one deals with the second temple. Bapurim, Vayavo Amalek. We read Vayavo Amalek. B'Roshei Chodashim, right? And Rosh Chodesh, V'Roshei Chad Shechem. Rosh Chodesh Shechaliot b'Shabbat. What happens? Okay, Maftirin V'Haya Midei Chodesh b'Chodsho. Okay, that is the Haftorah. Chaliot be'Echad b'Shabbat. Okay. Okay, by the way, that was happens to be when Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh come together. That happened to be my bar mitzvah haftarah. Okay, Chaliot be'echad b'chodesh. What happens if we have a situation? Okay, that Shabbos, okay, is and the next day, Sunday is Rosh Chodesh. What do we read? Me'etmol maftirin. From the day before, namely Shabbos, Vayomer lo Yonatan Machar Chodesh. So that's the Haftorah read. Amar Rav Huna, as we go to the next Amud, right? Rosh Chodesh Av. Okay, what happens? Rosh Chodesh Av, the month of Av for Rosh Shechaliot b'Shabbat, Maftirin Chadshechem Umoadechem Sin'ah. Nefesh hayu alai letorach, that it was for me a burden. Mai hayu alai letorach. What do we mean when we say it was a burden? Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, lo dayan lahem liyisrael shechotin lefanai. It's not enough that they are sinning before me or have sinned before me. However, we want to. Ela shematrichin oti leida. Ezu gzeira kasha ani avi alehem b'tisha b'av. Okay, okay. I'm sorry. Ezu gzeira kasha avi alehem. Not only is it not enough that they committed sins, but they bother me. They burden me with wanting to know what is going to happen, so that they can pray to me not that I shouldn't do it. Says Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Okay.
You actually translate a little bit differently.
I'm sure.
I have to ponder what parts of the thing I should bring from.
Patisha ba'av gufei, my maftirin. What do we do as the Haftarah on Tisha B'av itself? Amar Rav says Rav, Eicha haita lezona. Okay, that part. Okay, Mikra mai. What do we read? Tanya acherim omrim. At the Braita says, others say, Ve'im lo tishma'u li. If you don't listen to me. Rabbi Natan Bar Yosef Omer. He says, what? Ad ana yina'atsuni ha'am hazeh. Up to what point will this nation bother me? V'yesh omrim, and others say, ad matai la'edah hara'ah hazeh. Okay? So notice there are occasions where there are different practices as to what should be read. Now that may reflect one practice in Eretz Yisrael and one practice in Bavel, or it may reflect different Masorah in different communities. Okay, right. Amar Habayis says Abai Ha'idna Nahug Alma Lemikre Ki Tolid Bani. Today says Abai, Okay, the practice of in general, is to read Ki Tolid Banim Umaftirin Asof Asifam, and do that as the Haftorah. Okay? Now, we continue with some of the other examples that are less common. Okay, for example, B'ma'amadot, right, on those occasions, B'ma'aseh Breshit, we read from the beginning of the creation story. Menahani Mili, how do we know this? What's it based on in the Torah? Amar Rabbi Ami, says Rabbi Ami, Ilma Madot, lo nitkaimu shamayim ba'aretz. Were it not for the Ma'amadot, okay, the fact that people would gather both in their local town and their Kohanic representatives and others would go to the Beis Hamikdash, all right, that heaven and earth would not remain, not stand. Shneamar, im lo bariti yomam v'layla, chukot shamayim ba'aretz lo samti. Okay. Uktiv, and it's also written, Vayomer Hashem Elokim b'meh eda ki ira shena. How I know, asking the question that I will inherit. Amar Avraham l'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this piece of Haggadah, I think, is pretty well known. Avram says to Ribbono Shel Olam, what does he tell him? Shema chas v'shalom Yisrael chotim lefanecha v'ata oseh lahem kedor hamabul ukedor haflaga. Perhaps the Jewish people will sin before you, and you will do to them what you did to the generation of the flood and the generation of the dispersion. Okay. Amar lo, Shem answers, love.
Won't do it.
No, I'm not going to do it that. Amar lefanav, Avram comes back. Ribbono Shel Olam, b'me'edah, how I know it. Okay. Amar lo, he says to them, kacheli eglem mishuleshet v'gomer. Okay, take me an animal, right, divide it up, etc., etc. Brit bein habitarim is the case. Right? Amar lefanav, says to him, Ribbono Shel Olam, Tenach bizman shebeit hamikdash kayam. That's acceptable with regards to the use of a korban as an offering for kapara, he says. Bizman she'ein beit hamikdash kayam, ma tehei aleihem. In the time when there is no Beis Hamikdash, what's going to happen to them? Right? Amar lo, he said to them, Kfar takanti lahem seder korbanot. I've already arranged for them the order of the offerings. Right? Kol zman shekorin bahem ma'ale ani alehem ki ilu makrivim lefanai korban. So long as when they read them, it will be attributed to them as if they actually offered the korbanos.
That's why you have to say korbanos.
That's why you right. That's the rationale, okay, behind the inclusion of korbanos. Which one, Alan, and then.
Again, it translates Seder Karbanos, it's the scriptural sections of the offerings.
Yeah, it's just right.
Exactly.
What Abraham is really, prior to the building of the Beis Hamikdash, you could have bamas. So even without the Beis Hamikdash, korbanos were being brought somewhere all the time. But after the destruction of Bayis Rishon, or Bayis Sheni, where you're not allowed to have bamas anymore, what's going to be? That's what he's asking.
Okay. So what happens, and it finishes up, Umochelani al kol avonoteim, and I will forgive their sin. Okay, now we come back to a new item about what is read, but ta'aniyot, regarding fast days. Right? Brachot uklalot, ve'ein mafsikin beklalot. So here we don't have that as the reading for fast days. Okay? All right, going on. Minahani milin. What's the basis for this? Amar Rabbi Chia bar Gamda, Amar Rabbi Asi, the Amar Kra, says the pasuk, Moser Hashem b'nai el tim'as. Okay, what I've given you should not be despised. Reish Lakish Amar, Lafi she'ein omrim bracha al hapuranut, because we don't say a blessing on on disasters, on terrible things. Ela hechi avid. Okay, how then are we to do? Tana, as taught in the Breita, Keshehu matchil b'pasuk shelifnehem. When he starts in the verse before them. Ukeshehu mesayem b'pasuk shelacharei.
I think
And when
that's
he-
how we're noheg with regard to the Tochach.
Right. Okay, and when he finishes, he adds an additional pasuk afterwards. Okay, But-
Baruch dynamics, that's not a good thing.
No,
No.
he's saying that if
that's not a Torah reading, Baruch Dayanim. That's our
you're gonna
response
say
to a
Baruch Hu,
situation,
you're gonna say Baruch Hu, and then you're gonna read the parsha of the Klalos.
right? So what
You don't
happens?
wanna do that.
Okay, you all have something before, something after, right? Okay, Amar Abaye.
Don't like to get that.
That's true. That's
A lot
why
of
it's
schools,
usually
They don't give it to anybody.
They give you
well the
Baal
Kohen
Or
Baal
the
Koreh
Torah,
takes
or the Kabbah, or the
I
Rav.
I flunked out.
it. Lo shanu ela biklalot shebetorat kohanim. However, the Gemara tells us, wait a second, what we're referring to is the list of curses in Vayikra. Aval klalot shebemishna Torah, but the list of curses that are in Devarim, right? Posei, there one can stop. My Tama, what's the reasoning? As the Gemara asks, right? Chaim, halalu bilashon rabim amurot. These were said in the, okay, one could say that they were said in the plural, or they were said for the community in general. Umoshe piagvura amran. And Moshe said them directly as dictated, so to speak, by Hashem. Vahalalu, and those in Dvarim, bilashon yachid amurot. They were said in the individual, okay, or said in the singular. Okay, Umoshe mipi atzmo amran, and Moshe said them on his own. In other words, he was reviewing and stating something else.
Double the amount of Kukosa,
Mhm.
48 to 96.
Okay. Levi Barbuti, Havakare, Vakam Megam Game, Kame de Rav Huna, Ba'arori. Levi, what happened? Poor Levi here. He was Megam Game. He was stammering. Why? Because of how difficult the section of the Klalos was. Right? Right. So what happens? Before Rav Huna, he had difficulty to utter such harsh pronouncements. All right? Amarlo, and Rav Huna said to him, Akinafshech, if you wish, lo shanu eleklalot shebetorat.
You don't have to keep going.
Okay? It says that was only applied to the, right, Vayikra curses. Aval shebemishna Torah, posei, but the curses there in Devarim, you can stop. Tanya Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, Omer, Ezra tikein lehem Yisrael. Ezra was the one who established. Shehiyu korin klalot shebetorah, shebetorat konim, that they would read the curses in Vayikra, kodem atzeret, okay, before Shavuot, v'sheba Mishnah Torah, kodem Rosh Hashanah, and in Dvarim before Rosh Hashanah. Mai Tamo, what's the reasoning? Amar Abaye, v'itema Reish Lakish. Abaye, and some say it was Reish Lakish, kadei shetichle Hashana v'kalalotah, in order that you finish the year and all its curses, and then you're done with it. Okay, so Gemara asks a reasonable question here. Bishlema b'mashna Torah, ika kadesha tichleshana v'kalalotah. That's understood when you say Devarim, right? The curses. Why? Because you're going to finish the year with its curses, right? You read that before Rosh Hashanah, fine. Okay, but Ella, Shebetorat Kohanim. But what about the example of the curses in Vayikra? Atu Atzeret, Rosh Hashanah. Since when do we think Shavuot? Okay, as like Rosh Hashanah, a new year,
Beginning of the year.
right? A beginning of the year. The Gemara is going to answer us. And yes, Atzeret Nami Rosh Hashanah. It's also, I'm going to say, a kind of new year, right? It's not. Why? Because it says in a Mishnah, Uba Atzeret al Perot Ha'ilan. Okay, because it says, right, in regards to Atzeret, for the fruit of the trees. Okay, right, right. What does the Mishnah say? Arba Minei Rosh Hashanah. Right? Okay, Tanya New Brighton. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, he says, Im Yamrulach Zkinim store, Viladim Bana, if elders tell you to tear down or destroy, and the younger generation tells you build, store Va'al Tivneh, destroy and don't build. Mipnei Shastirat Zkenim Binyan, because the tearing down or the destruction by elders is like building, ubinyan na'arim stira, and the building of the youth is like destroying. The siman ledavar, and a reminder of this incident is the following: Rechavam ben Shlomo. When we read in Kings, I think, right? First Kings. Right, that's the story that he went and got the advice of the elders, didn't listen to their advice, but went to his peers and got their advice, and therefore didn't reduce the taxes or the corvée, and therefore what happened? Ultimately, it was attributed to him. That was the beginning of the splitting of the kingdoms. Okay, that's the point. Tana Rabbanan says a bright. Makom shemafsikin b'Shabbat shacharit, sham korin b'mincha. Okay. Now, according to this, Braita initially, okay, wherever we would stop on after Shabbos morning, okay, you would then start then Shabbos mincha.
That's what we do.
Okay, hold on a second. Okay, b'mincha, all right. Sham Korin B'Sheni. From Mincha, there you would read on Monday. B'Sheni, Sham Korin B'Chamishi. On Monday, there you would read on Thursday. Okay? We don't do that. In other words, the implication is you'd read certain amount of Monday, you'd read continue from there, a certain amount Shabbos Mincha, continue there Monday morning, and then continue there Thursday morning, and then start further on Shabbos. And just for those that aren't aware of it, okay, well, I'll explain that afterwards. Remind me, okay? Sham Korin l'Shabbat Haba'ah, and then you would read on the following Shabbos. That's not what we do, okay? It's as if you said, fine, if I have a week's Parsha, Shabbos Mincha, I would read Rishon. On Monday morning, I would read Sheni. Thursday, I would read Shlishi. And then I would read from Revi'i to the end, okay, on the following Shabbos. All right? That would be might be the implication of that situation. Divrei Rabbi Meir. Notice who came up with that. All right? Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Makom shemafsikim b'Shabbat shacharit, the place where they finish Shabbos shacharis, Sham korin b'mincha. That's where they begin. Ubesheni uvechamishi l'Shabbat haba'ah. And that's then we
read the same thing.
Read the same thing. That's the practice that we actually follow. Okay? Now, where did Rabbi Meir get his suggestion? That would be the question one might ask. Okay, it could be that that was a format that could have been done in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, we don't know that. Okay, but the fact that the Gemara mentions it, there are contemporary movements, I would tell you, that suggested that that's how they wanted to structure
What
reading.
contemporary movement?
I'll tell you afterwards. Okay, all right. Okay, so what happens? Okay, halacha, right? So we said Amar Rav Rabbi Zera halacha makom shemafsikim b'Shabbat shacharit, and the law is according to Rabbi Zera. Okay, sham korin b'mincha u'b'sheni u'b'chamishi u'l'Shabbat haba. Okay, the law is like Rabbi Yehuda according to Rabbi Zera,
Let's stop here.
and that's where we are going to stop. Okay,
Bob?
Yeah.
Want to come over here for a second?
what?
Wanted us to remind you that. Oh. Something you wanted to explain?
I just threw it out, that there was a contemporary movement,
What's kind of
conservative movement, some years back that attempted to argue that, okay, all right, but notice that the halacha says, no, the halacha is what we do. You read the whole parsha, you start the new parsha, Shabbos Mincha, you repeat that Rishon, boom, 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 Shabbos Mincha, then Monday, Thursday, and then start it off.
Thank you. Block that she is too. What do you got?
I had two people, I don't know who they were.
Okay, just put two, you know.
Did you have Pacey's name down?
Yeah. Okay. Others? And then there's possibilities that, well, since.
All right, just, how many you got?
With what you gave me, the
Just
other two?
right now.
Yeah, right now.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19.
All right, so, and then we may have others, so we'll do it inside.
He's like a hobby coach. Ask Gabby if it's
All
in
right,
front of
fine,
us.
so
Tell him it may be as much as 25. We'll talk.
He
talk in
can't-
the car.
we don't have room for 25 outside. He said up 20 to do it outside. That's why he needs to know today.
I'm sorry. All right.
All right, so we'll tell him 23 or 24, and we have to do it inside. That means you're not coming, Alan?
Yes.
We'll